Good morning. We are back. Again, this is Saturday morning. I'm your host, Inez Kelly. We are here with Miss Monica Hawkins. We finally got her settled in. Just coming in, I feel absolutely honored. She's flying in from California. So just arriving this morning in our studio to talk to us. And so we feel honored. We appreciate you getting here.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Inez. I'm glad to be here this morning.
We just want to kind of talk, fill us in on your story. And we want to talk about that whole journey because I know you lost your son tragically and suddenly, along with a few other things that were already going on in your life. So this, not that alone and by itself, that's not a huge undertaking, but you factor in all of the things together and you are just beautiful, bright, sunny, and just looking at you, you would never know what it is that you have been through. And so I think a lot of us feel isolated in our situation sometimes. And but I just want you to talk to us about your journey to here.
Yes, and I'm really glad that I'm here to share my story. And it actually started May 6, 2012. My life forever changed. Got the call that no parent wants to get, that your child is gone. And actually, I spoke with Dante. He was just home from college, Clarion University, just finishing up his semester. And he called and said, "Mom, I'm on my way home. Unlock the door because I forgot my keys." And I said, "Okay." And typically, Inez, when I get woke up by him, I'm always praying for my sons. I have two sons, and I'm always praying. But this particular night, it was a little different for me. But I said, okay. And I kept praying. I must have prayed so hard. And he called me after the call. He said, "Mom." I said, "Yes." He said, "I love you." And I said, "I love you too." And he said, "I'll see you in a minute." I said, "Okay, I'll see you in a minute." And I ended the call with him, and an hour and a half later, I got another call, and it was my sister on the call. And she said she was just lost for words. And she began to tell me, "Monica, Dante got shot." And I'm like, "Got shot? Wow. Is he dead? He's hurt?" I hung up the phone. A barrage of questions were going through my mind as a mom. I began to call my prayer partner, my mom, my pastor, his brother. No one was answering the phone call. And I remember sitting at the bottom of my steps and putting on my shoes, and I said, "God, everything I need to know about you needs to stand up right now because I'm by myself. And I don't want to go to that scene by myself."
Right.
And I went. And lo and behold, I got down there. We were down there for hours. My son and my family members were coming, and I kept seeing the ambulance there. I never saw the coroner van.
Right.
And I said, well, he's still making it. He's a fighter.
Right.
He's fighting for his life.
Right.
And okay. And got the news. The detective gave the license to my oldest son. And he said, "Mom," she said, "go home." And I said, "I'm not going home. I'm not going to leave my son here, my baby on the street."
Right.
And I said, "Can I please," as I share in my book, A Shattered Heart, in chapter 1, caution behind the yellow tape. They let me behind the yellow tape. And I saw him there, laying there. He was bleeding out, and he was gone. And the last thing I was able to say is his mom, "Dante, I love you."
Wow. Wow. And so I'm just taken by it. And so give me a minute, because I'm even watching you even today. I'm watching your eyes and I'm watching the glaze, and so the hurt and the pain of the experience is forever woven into the fabric of, when we experience these things, of who we are. But you walk through it. I'm just going to hold your hand here a second. But you walk through it, and it's hard, and it's hard for a lot of people. So tell us, at what point, and I'm not thinking that you shifted from learning that you lost your son to healing, but at what point did it register to you that, okay, I have another son? In those moments we want to die, but at what point do you say, I want to live?
At the point that, I learned, I went to therapy as an ordained minister. I went to therapy. I went to a trauma therapist that dealt specifically with this type of trauma, Mary, excellent and started because I was looking for information on how to properly grieve, how to deal with.
So you recognize that? I mean,
Absolutely.
What was that? You recognize that right away?
No, at first, after he died, I tried to go back to normal. What was normal, what was familiar, and that's what a lot of us do.
Right.
I say in my book, I share, I began to try to play hurt. And God used an analogy of football. Like we see, I love football, and I saw my favorite football player, and he got hurt. And I'm like, wow, he's out the game. But next week he was back in the game, and it was a very tragic hurt. And I was like, well, why is he back in the game? And the Lord spoke to me because of my intimacy with God. He said, that's what you've done. You've gotten back in the game, but you're still hurt.
Right.
And I'm trying to facilitate something that was normal. But your life is forever changed.
Exactly.
But yet you want that familiarity.
Right.
And when the pain was so excruciating, it was like, I need to figure out how to deal with this pain because, as anyone would say, I wanted to give up. And I prayed. That was my prayer. God, please, you can take my life at any point.
Right.
Because I want to give up. And I went to counseling. He said, I'm going to take you on to a trip and you're going to deal with some things, but I want you to come back and I want you to get counseling. And I was just like, God, I'm not going to counseling. That's for crazy folks. He said, well, you crazy if you don't go.
Exactly.
I said, well, that sounds about right, God. And I said, so I went. And I went to the counseling. And the first time, it was just like eye-opener.
Right.
And she said, let me remind you of something. When I ended the session, she said, grief is something you never get over. Right. You learn how to get through it.
Right.
And you learn your triggers. You learn the things that's moving. And I thought, I'm a project manager by trade. I have a start date and end date. And I thought, well.
So it started here.
I started here. Let's go in here. I'm going to deal with the shock. I'm going to deal with the denial. I'm going to deal with the anger. I'm going to deal with the hurt. And it's going to be a sequential. I didn't know it was really, a lot of time it was parallel. It was all at one time. It could be, it's like an ocean I share in my book. You don't know what kind of wave is coming in, but when it comes in, you got to have something to be able to cope with.
Something to stand up against. You got another young man standing here with you, very handsome young man. And this is your other son. And so I ask you, what about when the child also experiences the loss of the sibling? You're healing, they're broken. What was the dynamics there?
Well, I dedicated a full chapter to him.
Okay.
Forgotten Mourner. And I was so absorbed with my pain, so absorbed what I was going through. In my prayer time one day, God said, look at your son, your other son. You have to live for him. And he came over the house, and just like him, I was too. I said in my book, I'm very transparent in my book, where are you, God? I blame God. Like, God, are you serious? Like, I lived for you, I walked with you, and you allowed this to happen? Like, of all people, why me?
Right.
And I remember God saying, just in a normal course as a human being, the why questions can be so perplexing. But when you're going through such grief, it could be so overwhelming. And so he said, I need you to support him. I said, why? I'm grieving.
I lost the son.
Right. I carried him for 9 months, God. And he was just like, you're getting ready to lose him. Look. And he was just in the house, and he was just normal. You would think he was normal. Everything was fine. It was all good look. That's the look he was giving me. It's all good. But one day I just saw behind, as you saw in my eyes, just the glaze and the hurt and the pain of it. And I said, wow. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to support him. And I looked online and I started going to Victims of Violent Crime, trying to get information. And I was just like, they're not giving me some real steps to help him. Right. And I said, God, how do I do it? He said, tell him it's okay for you guys to cry together. I was like, Devon, it's okay if you share, if we talk about it. And he was just like, no, I'm good. I was like, no, really, we can talk about it. Like, Dante's been part of our life for 20 years. It's okay to say his name. It's okay for us to cry. And sometimes I had to allow myself to lay in his arms and cry, and vice versa. And we learned how to balance each other through it. But it was a challenge to be able to say, I'm in a state, and he's in a different state. And he didn't want counseling at first. And I said, you have to go. It's going to answer a lot of questions. He's like, no, Mom, that's for you. You know, you're doing that. And I was like, no, go. And he went.
Right.
And then once we both were getting educated about it,
Right.
we were able to have those intelligent conversations. We was able to really socialize our emotions with each other, because now we understood, and this is what it looks like. I'm always the one, the preacher, that says, okay, the Bible says this, but what it look like in my daily life?
Exactly.
What does this look like in my daily life?
I am so glad that you brought that up, because, and just to kind of digress a bit with Devon, sons, especially with their moms, do not want to put something, you already know that she's going through something, so they will not bring themselves to you as an additional burden. They're going to be the man, and they're going to hold you up, because that's what they're here to do. So to even get him to the place where he went to therapy and to be able to walk through and heal, you know, young man, you did a great thing. You really did a great thing to, because being weak together is strong. Okay, so, and it allows you to grow. When
the Sandy Creek situation happened with those little kids, and the Trayvon Martin situation happened, it touched my heart. I wept for the mother, because I was like, they're getting ready to start a journey that if they don't have a great support system, they don't have a strong belief in God, it's going to rock their very being.
Right. And you see people who have suffered and who do not have the support system, because before this has happened to me, I would see, because I think when you don't go through something like this, the sensitivity of it, even though you can, I'm sorry for your loss and all those sort of things, but when you actually walk through something like that, you know the intensity of the pain that hits every fiber. I mean, it's like you can feel the water in your eyeballs. You can feel every fiber of your being, and you know what that pain feels like. And I think that sometimes I wonder if the purpose of that is that we become more sensitive to humanity in that sharing of the pain. Okay, Doc, you had something to say on that?
Yes, and that's another reason why your book is so powerful. In addition to you sharing the healing journey, you also are letting people know what it really is like to lose a child to violence. A lot of us, unfortunately, have become desensitized to that.
Absolutely.
And we're not in touch with what the impact it has on the family. So the manner in which you wrote, your transparency, your ability to really capture those raw emotions, now people can really get what it feels like. And perhaps that would help us really give some second thought and really begin to put some things in place to stop a lot of this senseless violence.
We have to put value back on life.
Yes.
Because
definitely.
Here's the bottom line is, although it hit me in Pennsylvania, it's affecting you today.
Yeah.
That's right.
You it's affecting a doctor today. And not only has it affected me, but it affects my family, and it affects the community.
Right.
And we as a community have to get back to some moral boundaries or some integrity, because at the end of the day, we just make it like someone got pregnant. Oh, so-and-so's got murdered. Well, it's not that simple.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we trivialize the violence, but you know what, and I'm coming from a preacher standpoint, when we've taken God out of everything, and now here's the end results.
Exactly.
But not only that, we got to get our moral compass back. We have to say it's critical to understand that this is a life. And I tell any parent, my son didn't start out doing well. My son got in a lot of the street, different things. But he began because I kept at him. I kept with him. I was determined, Inez. I was like, I'm going to get a return on my investment. You didn't cut up. You didn't cut up. You didn't did this. But I'm going to stick with you.
Right.
And I didn't co-sign on none of his behaviors.
Right.
Listen, I was the police in my own house.
Right.
And I told on him. Yes, I did. And guess what? The end result was he enrolled himself and went to college. And I was able to take him to school. See, I had that memory.
Exactly. It's because you didn't support that behavior.
No, I'm not going to support
it was not okay.
That's right. You said
it was not okay. Yeah, you just have to be that.